I'm Robin Boyce, and welcome to City Corner. Today you get a chance to meet a group that's come out of the protest in Ferguson called Tribe X. Welcome back. And welcome back to City Corner. I'm Robin Boyce, and on the program today, we're going to be talking with a group of young people who had the opportunity to meet during the Ferguson protest here most recently during August, September, and October. And we're moving into a time at this point where we're waiting to hear about the grand jury's decision on what's going on. Probably by the time this program airs, the grand jury decision may have been made. And we will talk with the group of young people called Tribe X about their opinions on what has happened and what they think will happen after that decision is made. But I want to introduce you to them first. Our first Tribe X member is Jonathan X, Miss Alicia X, Rocket Ali. On the back row, Talal X, Darius Ali, EJ, and HK. Thank you, young men and women, for coming on the show and talking with us today about your organization, Tribe X, and for talking with the community about some of the things that you've seen on the ground. Now, you're a group that formally started from a grassroots perspective. And a good friend and a client of mine called and said, I really need for you to sit down and talk with the young people about how to deal with media, some of the things that they might want to do, because you all want to cover what's going on during the protest and what has happened. Now, how did you all get together? And I first would like to talk with the president of the organization, which is, what is your name? I'm sorry. Rocket Ali. Rocket, you're president of the organization. Yes, you all have formed and you've gotten your organization together. And Ms. Alicia, you're vice president as well. Yes. Tell us, how did you all form and get together?
Well, the formulation of our organization was actually quite organic because it did start on the right on the ground. So I actually met this guy first. So Darius and I are actually the brothers. And we met him on West Florissant. And it kind of grew from there. So after we met him, and then some time passed, we actually met him and our partner, Talal, and our partner group at the same time. So we partnered with M-Slice, and we actually met them and Talal at the same time.
And M-Slice is what now?
It's a partner of us. It's a partner group.
It's a nonprofit organization in North St. Louis that is working with people as well.
Yes.
Now, so
around the same issues.
Around the same issues.
Yes.
So you all got together, you met during the protest. What was it like those first few days?
Man, you know what? It actually felt like a war. I felt like a refugee. I felt like I was in the middle of a civil war. There was gas in the streets. There were stranded people all over the places. They had closed down buses. There were people giving people rides. It really felt like we were being occupied, you know? I felt like I was in the Middle East. I felt like what I see on TV.
So were you frightened?
Was I fighting?
Yeah, were you frightened? Did you feel frightened to see
yes, I'm fighting.
tanks
was I fighting? Yes, at
guns
times I was
pointed
fighting,
at
yes.
you? And
I've been hit with tear gas. I've been hit with rubber bullets. I've been hit with pepper spray. I've been hit with batons. So yeah, I mean, there was times where I definitely was frightened. But the thing about fear is the more you experience something, that goes away. And that's a problem in itself because I should be afraid of those type of things. That's physical pain. But over time, I became less and less afraid, and I'm pretty sure when I say that, I speak for all of us.
Alicia, the mission statement for Tribe X, what is it?
To combat global injustices and white supremacy by organizing, educating, and empowerment to the community.
So you all have been busy since Mike Brown was killed in helping to organize people in Ferguson, and because are any of you from Ferguson? That's probably been one of the biggest questions and comments have been made by folks. Are you from Ferguson? Okay, giving him the microphone so he can. You live in Florissant?
Yeah, I live in Florissant, about like literally around the corner off of House Ferry in West Florissant. So
Okay, all right. So you saw what was going on at the
Yeah,
time
yeah.
and what was happening. Okay, all right.
So and I'm from the O'Fallon Park area. I'm from Redbud and Carter. But the thing about it is this right here. What we realize is this is not a marginalization of a particular neighborhood. This isn't just about Ferguson. This is about what's going on in the entire metro area. And what we were trying to counter is a global system of injustice, a global system of white supremacy. And it's not just marginalized to Ferguson. This goes on, it's going on in Mexico, it's going on in Palestine, it's going on in Hong Kong. It's the same thing. So none of us are from Ferguson, but it is something that affects us all.
We're all from the struggle. None of us are from Ferguson, but we're all from the struggle. And I feel like people who ask that question, are you from Ferguson, are you from Ferguson, they're people who want to marginalize the movement. Because it does not matter where I'm from America. This didn't happen in Ferguson, this didn't happen in St. Louis, it happened in America. You know, and then it didn't even happen in America, it happened in the world. So when you ask the question of, are you from Ferguson, you completely demean and marginalize the movement. And so to people who would ask that question, I would just say to them, so if you're not from Ferguson, does that mean that you can't help? And that's all that I would ask them.
You had a question?
I was finna say, I'm from the South City area, but I actually been spending most of my most of my teen years and most of my adult years in Ferguson, so.
Okay, so you're in and out of Ferguson, which references social or work or what have you. Some of you are students and very busy individuals, but you're on the line every night. How do you do that with school and work and keep things going with reference to organizing people and making sure there's peaceful protests? How do you do that?
I think it's important to keep perspective in mind. So like we're able to go on and we're able to be students because we were able to live and we were able to make it to that point. So on my end as a student, it's a responsibility that I hold to make sure that the people coming after me can get there and that I can get there, because when you're out there in those streets and you're encountering certain people, they don't care where your parents came from, they don't care how much income you have or your family has or what degree you have. They see your skin tone and they making a judgment. Period, point blank from there. So we're all responsible. And your bigger responsibilities are really almost, if you think about it, irrelevant when it comes to this movement, because you're a part of this, whether you think you are or not, especially if you're African American. This is your movement. This is about you. Nobody is going to see your piece of paper or see your student ID when you're out there.
Now, the night that the protests really started building up in August, there was a lot of looting. Businesses were torn up, and there was a huge amount of criticism about that. Were you all a part of the group of individuals trying to stop the situation or cool it down, or what was going on out there? What was happening? Were these agitators who were
I would like to say that none of us took part in any of the looting or rioting, but I do have to say that as a group, we feel like it was a necessary thing, because it brought the attention to the movement that we needed. I actually had a conversation early on in the movement that first Thursday, so like after everything started, I had a conversation with a media person who asked me the same question. And I told him that it was very necessary, because if it wasn't for that, you wouldn't even be out here right now. And he couldn't do anything but shake his head. And so I don't necessarily agree with the rioting and looting, because there's a lot of ways to do things, but I'm not in disagreement. Because of that, I'm here talking to you on this couch right now.
Are all of you from the St. Louis area or from
Yes.
out of town? Okay, so you've grown up in this region and understand what it is you've been looking at. So with that being said, when the protests started and you started really feeling some kind of kinship toward individuals who were protesting, was it the TV that said, I need to get out there, or what happened? Why did you make the move to get out there?
Well, because like I think we all relate to what it feels like to be profiled, to be marginalized, to be targeted, and so like going back to the question you said, well, how do we have these real lives? Some of us are taking 18 credit hours this semester.
Yeah.
How do we balance our lives with the movement? But the thing of it is, like being black, being young and black, even at school, walking to the library after dark, you know, we have to show our ID, and so like we really have this isn't a choice thing. Like we're not choice activists. We have no choice but to be part of the movement.
This movement is part of our bone marrow. It's part of our spirit. It's part of every part of our body. It's not just a movement. A movement is something that you become a part of. This is more than a movement. In fact, I feel like we need to come up with a new word because it's not just a movement, it's a lifestyle for us. It's a part of real life. It's not something that we wake up and we're like, today I'm not going to do it. In fact, that's something that we talk about very often is that when we try to rest, the rest doesn't feel comfortable. It just doesn't feel right because this has become life. It's almost as if all of us have been waiting for this our whole entire life.
Do you all feel like my generation failed you all in some kind of
Yes.
way? How so?
Well, we just feel like once upon a time the ball was dropped and a lot of problems were allowed to, a lot of problems came into place that we're still dealing with today. We're still dealing with right now, and we don't exactly have the backing that we need
from my generation?
Yes, that we need to get over these humps that we didn't create, that we deal with, that we have to, it's become our job to figure them out. And once again, like I said, the backing isn't necessarily there, you know. In fact, there's a divide between what we're doing and what your generation thinks we should be doing, you know. And I guess I kind of feel like it's kind of late to tell us what we should be doing now when you guys could have done it and this wouldn't be happening at all.
Go ahead.
I feel on it. I feel that it was a lot of things that the older generation could have picked up to make sure that this situation wouldn't have happened. So I don't per se feel like you guys failed us, but I feel like the movement is in younger people's hands. So we should be able to move. Like, of course, we always need direction and we always need guidance. So we need
And
to
you
respect
willing to
our
take
elders.
that from folks from my generation?
Correct.
That direction and teaching.
Correct. But at the same time, don't try to sit up here and give us one idealism of what y'all think may help, because if it was going to help, it would have been help.
And also simply, there's a difference between giving me directions and telling me where to go and then taking the wheel. There's a difference, you know, because you can give me direction, you can tell me which way to go, but if I decide to go a different route, you can't take the wheel. You can't grab the wheel. There's a difference.
It's a huge
And when you
difference.
talk about past generations and present generations, I think one of the things you want to see is you want to see those come after you do better than you did. You want to
Of
see them
course.
accomplish things you want to accomplish. And if you want to see something you never seen before, you got to do something you never did.
Yes.
So for most of us, when we say like you failed us, we're saying we don't want to implement the same method you use. We saw what that got you and we're here, so we're not satisfied by that. What we would like to do is move forward and figure out what else we can do. But at the same time, because of what you've been through and your experience, you can definitely offer us some guidance and some mentoring. And so we're definitely willing to hear you, but you definitely have to willing to be open and understand that we're trying to do something different.
We will come back in just a few minutes to talk more about a Occupy St. Louis University that most recently happened, and that TribeX had an opportunity to get an agreement with the president of the university. So we will come back with your passionate conversation in just a few minutes. I'm Robin Boyce for City Corner.
This financial advisor is being accused of committing one of the largest investment frauds in the history of the United States.
I guess we're not going to Aspen. That's fine. You see, I like tennis balls. He likes insider trading. So he's going to jail and I'm going to a shelter. And no, they're not the same thing. Shelters are for good pets that want to be adopted. Jails are for criminals. I've done nothing. Uh-oh. Ooh, okay, I stole a cheeseburger once. I'm a dog.
For those dealing with the struggles of caring for a loved one, we hear you. Visit aarp.org/caregiving for advice and support.
Over 13 million people are affected by famine, war, and drought in the Horn of Africa.
Make a simple text donation of $10.
But do more than donate. Forward the facts.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen. petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
And welcome back to City Corner. I'm Robin Boyce, and in the studios with me is Tribe X. This is an organization of young people, students in the St. Louis area who came together during the Ferguson protest, and they have formed an organization that's about the mission of organizing people, uplifting, and moving people forward. Most recently, also during these protests, there was a young man who was killed in South St. Louis, and lots of people picked up the protest signs and their passion and moved out of Florissant to South City when this incident happened. During that protest period or time, you all took it to St. Louis University. Could anybody explain to me what happened there when he was occupied, slew at the clock tower? I'd like to talk more about that.
Yeah, but first I'd just like to explain why we chose SLU.
Yeah.
So we chose SLU because it's a grand institution in our backyard in which a lot of the systems that we're fighting to bring down are perpetuated. But at the same time, it's also a place where there's a lot of people who look like us. And when I say like us, I don't just mean skin color.
We're showing some pictures of you all at SLU doing Occupy.
They're young, and they're spirited. And so we saw a grand opportunity to educate and empower a group of people who would stand behind us and feel the same way that we do. And not just about this, but in a lot of things about life. Because, you know, being a young person is it's a hard time in life. You know, it's a lot going on. And so we saw an opportunity to get a lot of people who felt the same as us on the same accord. And I think we did a great job.
So when you went to St. Louis University, what we saw a lot on the news media were individuals saying, we don't want them there, there's no discussions going on, and I'm just repeating what was shown on the general market news, that a lot of students didn't want you all there. There were parents who spoke to the president and wanted some kind of agreement to come together quickly. The agreement that you all did get with the president of the St. Louis University, was this something that is something you really can work with and move forward, and you will see some movement from it, or what? Alicia?
So first, let's talk about the students and the parents and
Sure.
the institution within itself. So you're called St. Louis University. At some point, you need to be questioned and held accountable to the region you're in. Let's talk about the demographics of St. Louis, which is 50% black, and then talk about
St. Louis City.
St. Louis City, right?
St. Louis City is 18% African American in the region.
And then you want to talk about the demographics of St. Louis University, where there's a 6% African American student population, and that's including graduate. And then you want to talk about institutions and making them accountable, especially when you have a mission like men and women for others and pursuing the greater truth. If we're men and women for others, and if we're at St. Louis University and we're in the heart of the community, and we can see what's going on. You can walk outside, you literally step out your dorm room, go past the BSC, and you can see what's going on. If you just go a little bit further down, I think a lot of it was holding accountability. And as far as students and parents go, it's almost like this bubble. Like you feel like because you go to school here, you're exempt to what's going on in your community.
So do you see that a lot? Because you're a student there. Do you see students not really engaging using cross-cultural engagement outside of the campus?
There is limited engagement. So St. Louis University is really big on community service, but then the question of what community service comes up, and the questions of is the institution doing everything they can to help the environment they're in? So going to a church and tutoring for 2 hours, that's great, but let's talk about what that's really changing. And when you talk about systematic change, and you're talking about really combating those things present, that's when you get into things like the agreement. So as far as the parents and students being upset or angry, I think that was to be expected, because we're making you uncomfortable. Issues that you get to alienate yourself from and you don't have to worry about, that I have to worry about, you not have to worry about.
So
it,
that's
and
what
you don't have a choice.
that Occupy SLU was all about, really, to make folk uncomfortable enough to finally sit down at a table and discuss things, Jonathan?
But also to bring about institutional change, which is part of the mission of Tribe X. There was a point wherein a lot of parents, like you stated, and students were very frustrated and uncomfortable, but in service of something larger than themselves was to get eventually an agreement with the university. And my peers can speak to this idea of the actual experience on the ground, which was traumatic in itself.
We endured a lot of physical and also mental changes, especially the weather. It was cold.
Because you all stayed
We
in
camped
tents
out
and
in
you
tents.
camped out. Okay.
Tents. Cold ground, moisture. Good thing about it, it was a lot of some people who came in and actually realized what was going on, say were able to donate us items such as food, some type of supplies, clothing. We did have blankets, but yet we were inside tents in the rain, high winds, and we stayed there all day, all night for the whole week.
So did the president send some of his people down to talk with you all, or did you all go in and sit down and talk with him and discuss some of the things that you all really wanted to see changed on that campus?
Well, that didn't happen until the end of the week. So we were there for about a week before discussions started happening about what we wanted and what we would like to see come from this occupancy. And so, I want to go on the record of saying that we fought for that. It wasn't brought to us. We fought for that. We created the situation that led to this agreement. The agreement wasn't brought to us. We created the situation that led to the agreement by showing up radically. But clearly, sitting here, we're not a group of radical people. But sometimes radical means have to happen, as Alicia said earlier, sometimes people have to become uncomfortable before they decide to recognize what's truly happening.
You all were recognized by Attorney General Eric Holder for your efforts in getting that agreement, along with the president of the university, and keeping the peace. This particular protest, there was not any looting on the campus, or was there anything like that that happened?
No. I think that that's an important perspective to present, because oftentimes people would love to take this idea of this black organization and these black community members and these black students, and especially when you get into the black males, which often are seen as like, aggressive and almost negative, and almost like they just have a physical threat. And so I think that people would have loved to paint the picture of, they spoke to me this way. They made inappropriate comments towards me. So one of the most powerful things that we have to combat all of that was the fact that we were on a university campus, who was definitely not going to allow us to be there, especially for a week if that's what's going on, and especially that there was a camera recording us 24/7. Like, you can see the time we walked in, continuing on out for questions and combating that, because
you had a lot of live streaming going on where they really watched the encampment, and you had a lot of security down there making sure everything was okay for you as well as for others on the campus.
Mainly for the students. Mainly for the students.
There was not, okay.
When we showed up on SLU, there was actually people hiding in their closets. There were people hiding in their closets. It was getting back to us that people were saying that we were raping women and stuff like that. None of that ever happened. None of that occurred, but that just goes to show you that the police were not there to protect us. They were definitely there to protect the students and their institution, and to demonize us.
So you saw a continuation of that systemic movement of continuing to make it look like African Americans are these big bad people, especially the guys. But you all were able to counter that. And keep the peace. How do you do that? How do you, with the passion that you have, with the passion that you have with reference to this whole protest and everything that's happening, how do you keep that cool?
Well, basically, the revolution is what drives us. So we really just run off of that, because this is all of our lives, and don't none of us want our children to have to live through what we lived through. Like, we're tired of reading that in the books. We're tired of only getting 29 days to talk about our history, and that's only here because that's just a nightmare that we've been having this whole time. We've been on this earth longer than that. Why do we have to only talk about what happened when we was in America? So we just trying to make sure the earth is restored back to what it is.
Now, at this time of the taping of this program, a decision has not come from the grand jury as of yet to what is going to happen with Officer Darren Wilson and the killing of Mike Brown. Now, everybody's been making speculations left and right. The governor has come out this week and said that he's going to make sure we've got 1,000 some odd police officers ready to do what they need to do. Your feelings on what should happen, depending on what comes out of that grand jury?
I'm not a psychic, but I will say this. A lot of people are focused on the violence or actions or protests that will come from this, but I feel like it's most important to focus on the fact that there will be no indictment. The press conference that happened this week let me know that right off back. They were discussing tactics and training. They let us know that the National Guard is in town and stuff like that. And you don't put that much into something that might happen. They've already made their decision. And I feel like people are focused on, like I said, the protests and actions that are going to take place, when really what we should be focused on is the fact that post no indictment, there will be no trust left between young people and government.
So there is no way you think that we can move forward at this point with reference to, or would you have rather have heard at this press conference that the governor had, we've got some jobs that we're about to bring into the community, we're about to put this money, would you rather have heard something like that, or what?
Well, I don't think that at this point, like he said, we've lost total faith in the system and government because it doesn't work for us. And so I don't think this isn't about jobs and economy and giving us jobs and giving us access to the economy. This is about stop shooting us down in the street. And so even prior to the press release early this week, or later last week, like we seen, paratroopers jumping out of jumbo jets with parachutes, soldiers and stuff coming here. So we already knew what they were getting prepared for. But I wanted to speak to Mr. Holder, who did recognize us and said we did a good job and all that kind of stuff like that. But also, so Mr. Holder, he resigned because of a lot of different reasons, but basically because of his frustrations of not being able to do anything about that. But I wanted to ask him, if he could reach out to us and maybe give us some insight as far as so what can we do to deal with what we're dealing with? Because we can't quit being black. We can't resign and stop being young black people dealing with the system of oppression. And so, you can quit your job and say, I can't deal with this, but what can we do? Reach out to us and give us some insight as far as how do we handle this?
Mm-hmm. So what you all plan to do right now? Oh God, we have to wrap up this show. It went so fast. I told you I was going to go really fast, but I'm going to have you back on, and we're going to talk more about what's going on with the Ferguson situation. And I really appreciate you all taking out the time from your busy schedules to come in and talk with us today about this. I'm Robin Boyce for City Corner. We'll see you next time.